most of you, some more, some less, rely on volunteers. Your work wouldn't be possible to the extent that it is without people helping out, donating their time and their work. And so it will be exciting to hear your experiences with volunteers, what works well, what doesn't work well, and what you also want to learn from the other initiatives. So we're looking forward to an interesting discussion with all of you.
We have been working with volunteers in different ways for many years now, and we've been around for 10 years, and volunteers have been engaged in the organization since we started. However, it's only been a really formal part of our work in the past 3 or 4 years. Since COVID, it's really kind of taken on a whole new life. So I'll just spend a little bit of time speaking about our offering and how we work with volunteers in our day-to-day work. And then as Jasmine mentioned, we'll then kind of go into the challenge that we'll discuss a little later. So firstly, I just think it's important to acknowledge the two different programs that we work with. So at the moment, we work with volunteers in two ways. We have kind of two streams of volunteers. The first being our corporate volunteers. So these are volunteers who we engage through organizations, businesses, and really get volunteers through those organizations. So this could be the like of a funder who we would work with. So for example, AIB is one of our biggest corporate funders, one of Ireland's largest banks, and they'll also provide us with volunteers who will come from their staff team. We've had about 30 different types at 30 different organizations who we consider to be corporate volunteer partners. And they'll engage in 3 different volunteer opportunities that we have on offer. So this would be volunteering in our hubs, so actually supporting with the redistribution of food in our warehouses. It would be out gleaning, so during the harvest season. So actually at the moment, we'll take volunteers out with us to different farmers' fields across North County Dublin and a little further afield to collect any vegetables that might be left after the commercial harvest. And then we've also recently opened our community kitchen. So our community kitchen is a new offering that we have as part of our corporate volunteer offering, where we'll actually invite volunteers to support us with cooking meals using the surplus food that comes from our warehouse. These are the 3 different opportunities that we have on offer, but for the most part, about 80% of these volunteers will volunteer traditionally through the hubs with us. I think something that's important to note about our corporate volunteer program is that we do ask for a contribution from these organizations when they have volunteers coming through to support us. So anytime they send a volunteer to volunteer for a day into one of these opportunities, we'll ask for a contribution to go alongside this opportunity. This is our first stream of how we use volunteers and the way we kind of operate with them. And our second is through community volunteers. So this would be kind of the more traditional style of volunteering, where it's just individuals who are volunteering their own spare time outside of their own work to volunteer with us on a regular basis. So these volunteers will come in every week traditionally, and primarily will be supporting us either in the warehouse with picking and packing orders, or also going out as drivers, so actually doing deliveries of our food, or supporting drivers as navigators, so coming alongside them to support with those deliveries, support them with actually navigating through the city and getting them from point A to point B. This style of volunteering, as I said, is a lot more traditional, probably how you engage with volunteers yourselves in most cases. And this is really a smaller part of our program, but ultimately makes up the most hours of volunteering. So if we just look at the impact of each of these 2 streams, you can kind of see a little bit more clearly kind of how these 2 types of volunteering actually impact us as an organization and actually provide that impact. So you'll see if we're just combining the amount of volunteers on the corporate volunteer side compared to the community volunteer side, The community volunteers are smaller in numbers. There was only 69 of them in 2022, but ultimately because they're coming on a weekly basis, they will be actually contributing significantly more hours in terms of human power, in terms of supporting our organization. At the same time, corporate volunteers, there's significantly more of them. They take significantly more efforts to coordinate, as you can imagine, when there's over 1,000 coming through in a year. Still contributing a very significant amount of volunteer hours, but also, as I mentioned, there is that aspect of financial contribution that does come alongside these volunteers. Additionally, it allows us to create more significant ties with the organizations that they come in as a part of. So when we have organizations whose employees are actually volunteering with us, as you can imagine, this creates significantly better engagement with the organizations, which will then allow us to create bigger relationships, perhaps deeper relationships, whereby it could be that they're volunteering with us on a 3-year term rather just coming in on a one-time opportunity, or even further donating larger amounts of funding, or even supporting us in different ways through amplification on social media, or even through traditional media. So there's definitely pros and cons to both types of volunteering, which is what I wanted to just spend a little bit of time going into a bit more detail on. I think because we do have these two different offerings that contribute to very significant and important parts of the work that we do, I just thought I'd take a moment to kind of compare and contrast these two different types of volunteering, so you can kind of understand a little bit more clearly what this looks like from our side as volunteer managers, but also from the organization side in terms of the benefit. So as I just briefly mentioned there, when a corporate volunteer comes into the hub, the kitchen, or out gleaning with us, it's a one-off 4-hour opportunity. So if an individual volunteer comes in, they will most likely only come in once as part of a corporate volunteer program for 4 hours. There is a possibility that they might come in more than once if an organization has signed up for more than one opportunity with us, which is generally the case. But ultimately, it'll usually be only one time as a one-off opportunity, versus those community volunteers who will actually be coming in weekly for a 4-hour shift. So they'll be a big part of our organization, really will feel like a big part of the team. And also this will mean that they can take on higher skill level tasks. So with a community volunteer, we'll rely on them as drivers. They'll have their consistent driving route that they'll drive every single week. They'll get to know the organizations that they're working with on the other side, really develop relationships with them, as well as in the hub, where we'll be able to upskill them to use our warehouse management system. Our corporate volunteers, because they're only in for a very short amount of time, will really do simple, low-tech tasks that require 5 minutes or less of instruction. So in a lot of cases, this will be picking and packing orders, but rather than using the warehouse management system, they'll be using pen and paper and just be given a list, or they'll be going down the aisles to actually collect the food that way. It could also be very simply reorganizing any of the orders that come in. So we might get in a ton of carrots that need to be sorted into smaller containers. They'll support with those types of tasks because, of course, it takes a lot less time to actually give them the information they need to start on those tasks. When it comes to actually recruiting these volunteers and kind of the effort that needs to go in on our side to ensure that we have the appropriate amount of people to fulfill all of the different needs that we have, corporate volunteers will tend to come in through multi-opportunity programs. So what this means is we'll agree with an organization at the beginning of a year, ideally, that they'll come in for a certain amount of slots across the year that will then allow them to bring in volunteers. So if we take, for example, an organization, they might have 100 volunteer slots in a year, which would end up allowing them to come multiple different times across different opportunities. So it might be that they have 6 days of hub volunteering, 2 days of kitchen volunteering, and 1 day of gleaning. they'll get to advertise those opportunities within their own organization, and they will find the volunteers for us and then just let us know who's coming and when, and then we'll ensure that we're able to provide that opportunity for them. When it comes to community volunteers, this is where we're recruiting in a more traditional sense, where we're utilizing different databases like Volunteer Ireland to actually advertise any positions that we have available, and then going through a more traditional individual recruitment process with screening, interviews, induction, and then bringing them on board. Both, of course, come with different challenges and different opportunities. Ultimately, we can most likely get a community volunteer on board within as little as 2 weeks, versus a corporate volunteer program can take sometimes as long as 6 weeks to get on board, in shorter, kind of quicker time, maybe 2 weeks. So it does really vary in terms of how those folks come on board. When it comes to benefits, I've spoken about this a little bit already, but I think what's really important to note about our corporate volunteer program is it does create income for us. So this is, as a volunteer team, we actually sit within our development team. So we do have targets related to income when recruiting corporate volunteers. This is a really important part of our development strategy, and additionally allows us to, as I said, create further partnerships with organizations and find different ways to engage with organizations. When it comes to community volunteers, as I said, these are highly skilled individuals in a lot of cases. We'll be doing very specific work that does take time for them to learn, but also really make up a big part of our team and our culture. Volunteers really do kind of fit very neatly into the team, and ultimately are treated just like staff when it comes to engaging with them around the office, around the hubs. We do create a really lovely long-term relationship with all of these people, but also, of course, really benefit from the skill level that they're bringing to the team. About 80% of our drivers who do all of our deliveries are volunteers, which you can imagine is quite incredible because it is a highly skilled role, and it's a hard role. They're driving around the city all day, lifting orders, meeting directly with the charities. So it is a really fantastic opportunity for us to utilize volunteers, but also allows us to have these really wonderful, deep relationships with people who in some cases have been with the organization for over 5 years. When it comes to challenges, as you can imagine, there's a few that could come out of these two different programs. I think when it comes to corporate volunteers, because we're relying on them for lower skilled tasks, it can be challenging to ensure that we have enough tasks for them, that they're not actually creating more work for the team on the ground. In some cases, if we don't have our carrot order come in, which would have been their task for the day, there's always a moment in time when we need to figure out, okay, what are they going to do today? Can we rely on them for? How can we ensure that they have a fantastic day with us when the tasks that we might have planned for them might not go ahead? And that's one of the biggest challenges I think that we face as a team, and one that I think I'll speak a bit more when we actually raise the specific challenge I'd like to speak about. But when it comes to community volunteers, I think we have a really fantastic core crew of individuals who've been with us for a long time, who are incredibly reliable. But as you can imagine, there's always some that unfortunately we can't rely on, who might think it's a great idea to volunteer, but maybe when they join, it might not be something that they can actually keep up, or it's just something that doesn't fit in with their own schedules and realize the commitment is bigger than they imagine. So that's one of the challenges I think that we face with community volunteers, which I'm sure you're all familiar with in one way or another. In terms of impact measurement, this is something that we're not doing as great of a job of as we could on both sides, specifically when it comes to the impact that we get from volunteers. Some kind of high level impact measurement that we've done in the past is, of course, income generated from corporate volunteers. CO2 avoided, we had created a very kind of high level equation for us to calculate how much CO2 would be avoided when a volunteer comes in and supports us in the warehouse. Of course, it's not an exact science, it's not perfect. So it is something that we're looking to review in the coming months to try and get a better understanding of how we can communicate this from an environmental side to our corporate partners. And then, of course, hours completed is a very helpful one for us to articulate, which is what we're doing on the same side for community volunteers. I know that was a lot of talking, but hopefully it gave you a good overview of kind of what these two programs look like and what we're kind of facing as an organization when we look at volunteering, because we do have two very specific sides of the coin that we're working with on a regular basis on the volunteer team. Angela is here in spirit. She did just want to mention some of her insights from when she was in the States, from the Eisenhower Fellowship. She just wanted me to share these really cool images from City Harvest in New York, where their team really sees volunteering as not only an opportunity for organizations to come in, but they also see their volunteer manager as kind of like a hype person, someone who's really creating an experience when volunteers come in. Disco balls on the ceiling, really beautiful settings. We're doing the same thing at Food Club, but unfortunately no disco balls on the ceiling quite yet. But ultimately, really creating an experience as part of their corporate volunteer offering, which I think really goes to show kind of what is possible in this space and potentially what is needed to engage with volunteers on a corporate level on a regular basis. How can we ensure this is something that's interesting and exciting and something that people want to come to is definitely something that we always need to consider, specifically when we're looking at corporate volunteers, but potentially individual volunteers as well. Yeah, so just in terms of the challenge, I think something that I didn't really cover is how popular a corporate volunteering program is. So we're quite fortunate to be in a position where we're turning people away. We have so many really interested and excited partners who are coming to us on a regular basis to look for volunteer opportunities. At the moment, I'm booked until the end of 2023. However, that's because I haven't opened the books for 2024 quite yet. I imagine once we open the books, we'll start to book out until early in the year, which raises a question that we've been grappling with as an organization quite often is how do we create more opportunities for corporate volunteers? What does this look like? How do we do this? But most importantly, not compromising the essence and the importance of volunteering, where we really want people to come to us because they want to support us, and we don't want to just see it as an opportunity for us to create income. So that's something that I'd love to speak about with everyone, especially hearing from your own experiences.
I have some questions, but the questions that the others have are more important. So we'll start with that. So raise your hands if you do have any, and Alex already does. And Helen, I also saw you. So Alex, go ahead.
Hi, Nadine. Thank you for the presentation. I was laughing at the City Harvest picture because I was there as well, and I had the exact same thoughts with you many years ago. So they're doing a beautiful job as well. So my question was about the income generation. You mentioned generating income. Are you, just to clarify, are you asking from your corporate partner money for them to come to volunteer? Am I understanding this correct?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
So when
that is amazing. Wow.
Yeah, so when someone so if someone inquires with us, we will come back to them, give them the details on the opportunity and then the costing. We word it as a contribution, as a donation, but ultimately we are charging them for the opportunities. I know when I came, so I'm from Canada, I was working with nonprofits before. When I came to Food Cloud and they told me they were charging, I was shocked. I was like, wow, that is insane. But as I said, we have had a completely fully booked year. It is not turning people away. We are managing to charge every single one of the opportunities that comes through the door. So it is a really kind of exciting and fantastic way for us to generate income as a social enterprise, which I know can sound quite shocking from a volunteering perspective.
You need to teach us how, because I need to find out
Yeah,
because every time I get asked the same thing, and my reply is a bit sneaky from a sales point of view, but it actually works. I tell them, no, we don't charge anything. We just love for you to have you. If you wish to donate something, because we are a nonprofit, you are more than welcome to do so, and they actually often do so. But
great.
I'm
That's
really
fantastic.
interested in that. I need to pick your brain at some other point for that, for
Yeah,
sure.
definitely.
Thank you.
No problem.
I think that's a serious point though. Like the how do you sell that and then are so successful is something that literally all of them want to know. Next up on my list is Helen. I don't know if
It was a similar question, but I
okay.
wanted specifics actually, how much. And then the other aspect for us is that we only really get corporate groups that want to volunteer with us. So it's always like, we want to come with like 30 people or 100 people or something, which we really, really struggled for. So it's sort of how you can then turn that around into making it more of an individual. And how much you would then charge for an individual for a day as opposed to like a group doing an activity.
Yeah, definitely. We face the same challenge at the moment. So the most volunteers that we can accommodate in a day on a regular basis is 6, and that's only in our hub in Dublin. We have hubs in Cork and Galway, but they can only accommodate 4 and 2 individuals. That is based on the size of the warehouses, but also the amount of work that we actually have for those folks. This is why we brought gleaning into the equation. We can take up to 15 individuals a day, which can be a lot easier to sell because people want to make it a team day. They want to bring teams out as a larger group. So that is the most that we can take. But yes, Helen, we often get people who are like, can you do 100 people in 3 weeks? And I'm like, that's not how this works, but okay. So no, definitely hear that. But yeah, the way that's been helpful is because we've incorporated it into already our daily work. We've not been creating bespoke activities for these individuals. It has made it easier. But this is where the corporate partnerships, kind of bigger term corporate partnerships, are really important, because we say we can take 6 people a day, but then you'll have to split them across multiple days. So that's how we kind of get away with it. But it is a challenge that we're still facing, is how can we create opportunities for 30 people at a time, is something that we get asked often, and unfortunately just haven't cracked the nut on the most sustainable way to do that.
Okay, so too many volunteers and you're being paid for it. It sounds like a nice problem, but I know
nice
there's
problem
other
to have.
problems that come with it. Raquel, you're up next.
Yes, thanks, Nadine. I had the same question as Alexander, and listening to you, I was wondering how much or what is the range of the amount of money you ask, no, the companies, because we are already having these inquiries from companies to do a team building, no, activity, and we are doing and figuring out how to do it, because on the gleaning activity in the farms, it's harder because it's not always depending on our side, and we don't have so much logistics as you have. So nowadays we are designing or thinking what can we offer to companies and what is the range of the price we can offer to them, because at the end it's lots of time to coordinating with them at the beginning prior to the activity. So what is the range, no, of the amount of money more or less, and your experience previous, no, all the time to coordinate with them.
Definitely. So at the moment we're a team of 2, so it's myself and a coordinator who are managing the logistics of these partnerships and different opportunities. So a small team. When it comes to the pricing, at the moment, our hubs and our gleaning opportunities are both €100 per person, but we will advertise it as a session cost. So in Dublin, for example, it'll be €600 per day in the hub. Gleaning, because we can take up to 15 people, it'll be €1,500 per session. When it comes to the logistics, we're very fortunate that ultimately we are able to work with one farm on a regular basis for gleaning, for example. So the logistics are pretty easy to replicate. We're just doing the same thing on a weekly basis. So We'll get the contact information from the organizing company, and the week before we'll send out pre-arrival information with the details of where to go, how to dress, what to bring, how to get there, and then also an agreement. So we'll send a volunteer agreement for insurance coverage, so every individual needs to sign that. But it ultimately is quite a low lift when it comes to the logistics beforehand. The challenge that we face as a team of two in the harvest season, especially when we have gleaning, is of course that someone needs to be facilitating the opportunity on the ground. And for us, we're based in Dublin, more or less city center, and the opportunities will generally be between 60 and 90 minutes away, in the middle of nowhere. So those can be challenging, but fortunately we've been running gleaning now kind of properly for about 3 years, and it's gotten a lot easier over the years to facilitate it quite easily. Does that answer your question, Raquel?
Okay, we don't have a lot of time left, but Gunilla, you have one more final question. So yeah, go ahead. Please make it a somewhat concise.
My question is about, is there any movement? Because I mean, I think it's, of course, you should pay for this activity. It's team building. Companies, they have money, they will pay anyway for team building, and it's a very neat service that you do. But I wonder if the aim of is to create more community involvement. Is there any movement from corporate volunteers to community volunteers, or are there totally two different types of persons? What can you see?
Yeah, great question. So it's interesting because we only operate our opportunities in our warehouses Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. So corporate volunteers will come in as part of their workday, and then we'll say, I'd love to volunteer more. Can I come in the evening? Can I come on the weekend? And fortunately, the answer is no. We don't run any programming or any work over the weekends and evenings. So I think there's interest, but what we try to do is turn it into either champions within an organization to encourage more people to come, and B, changing mindsets and changing the way people act when it comes to food waste, and giving them more opportunities to do that outside of their own homes. But no, they're two different profiles of individual.
Thank you.
All right, then thank you, Nadine, for the time being. Thank you all for the good questions. We're going to move to our second presentation, which is going to be Alex from Boroume, who has it's already going to be the second presentation you're doing in this webinar series, correct?
Yes. Okay. Today is all about volunteers, a subject which is very fun to me because I've been a volunteer my whole life. And actually, Boroume started we started it as volunteers, the three founding members, and then it just grew and grew. So I'll just jump right into Boroume and volunteers. So first of all, you need to understand a big difference with Ireland. For example, we have, if not the lowest, one of the lowest volunteering percentages in the European Union, which is really sad. This doesn't mean that people are not nice here, quite the opposite, but they find different ways of expressing this. And this also has to do with the fact that we don't have a long civil society tradition as in Northern Europe. Things tended in the past to be solved through family, most of all. This is the south of Europe. And another thing is that we don't have a very good regulatory framework around volunteering. This has been created more or less in the past years, and still it doesn't look very good. So in this not so welcoming framework, we have managed to inspire and have the honor of having more than 2,500 volunteers in the past 10 years, which is pretty big for Greek standards. So what they have been doing for us is either helping us out in the office with our calls and or the food saving we do with Boroume's food saving model. They have been helping us in the farmers markets and in our gleaning efforts. They have been helping us out in awareness raising events, which we do regularly. and but also in technical support, graphic design, for example, which is really important because nobody in our team has any clue about how to do graphic design. So this is very helpful. And also fundraising, by the way, in the United States. So when it comes to attracting volunteers, what we have found out, you can use, of course, social media, which is important. It is important to have a continuous presence also in traditional media, because social media have changed a lot in the past years because of the algorithms being more strict. So if you don't pay, nobody sees you anymore, which is really sad. But the most important is word of mouth. I don't know, we don't measure the exact statistic, but a big chunk of people, of new people coming and having an interest of volunteering with Borume are people who have heard about us from somebody else who had this experience. So word of mouth is super, super important. And this is closely correlated for us of how we treat also our volunteers and how high we value them in our group. What we have found on the practical side that is really, really important is also responding immediately on volunteer requests. This may sound a bit banal, but it's not. I have so many examples of incredible volunteers who have helped us enormously, who just came to us because we were the first ones to respond to an email they sent to 10 organizations. And because people were not quickly responding from the other organizations, they just, they met us, they liked us, and they stayed with us. It sounds a bit random, but it is true, and I've seen this throughout the years so many times. So for us, it's really important, right from the first day of Borume and the first article written about Borume, which generated interest for volunteering. We had one person dedicated just to responding to volunteer requests, and our rule is the day does not pass without answering to all volunteer requests, no matter how many, no matter what time it is. So it's really important. We also have a specific procedure of welcoming and introducing ourselves to volunteers. I'll come back to this in the next slide, which is also important. Yeah, and what is also have been picking up in the past years, and Nadine mentioned it a lot, is corporate volunteering. CSR has arrived in Greece as well in the past years. So more and more companies are interested in that. And because we won one of the organizations that are well known in Greece and trusted by other organizations, again, here they speak among them. Greece is a very small country like Ireland. So if one company has a good experience with us, they speak in their forums, in their, I don't know, events they do, and they speak with each other, and they come because somebody else had a good experience with us. And another source for us is also colleges, not only from Greece, but from abroad, and various organizations that ship volunteers through the globe. I'm sure Ireland is very big in that as well. And are different organizations as well. So we don't exactly separate corporate with community volunteers. They're just volunteers, and but there are differences. We have the same exact experience in this division, because our normal volunteers, they are more committed, they will stay longer, you get a different bond with them, and as Nadine exactly said, they are part of the team, and you cannot understand sometimes whether they're normal staff or volunteers, and that's our goal as well. So when it comes to organizing, we have a very specific, as I said again, the rule is the day does not pass without answering to any request. We value this very, very highly, because all founding members were volunteers in their whole lives, and they were volunteers also when they started Borume, myself included. So we know what it takes for a volunteer to be happy, let's put it that way. We have a very specific introduction meeting every 2 weeks, which we do. We need to cluster this, because if we would do it for every volunteer, that would be too much. So we group them together, and every 2 weeks we have this introduction meeting, where the rule, which I'm really fond of, is, and I always say this to the team member doing this introduction meeting, this meeting is not about interviewing potential volunteers, but it's also volunteers interviewing Borume. And we need to make a very, very good job in selling Borume as good as possible, because it's our duty and our responsibility to make them have an interest in us. This is our mindset, and this is the way we approach this. And I'm very strict about this. So we have very specific guidelines as well. When somebody comes to us, guidelines for the farmers market, guidelines for the office, where everything is written down, like a rule book for a volunteer, our principles, everything, our way of conduct, everything you can imagine is in there. We have a very specific training. If somebody comes to the office, they always shadow somebody from the staff or a more experienced volunteer for a particular time frame, and then according to their development, they are being promoted. It's not a promotion, but they're being placed in different situations where they're gonna feel more valuable, which is really important. And of course, we have an MOU, because, as I said, the regulatory framework in Greece is a joke. And because I don't want to end up in jail, we have a small MOU which we signed. Today in the morning, I had a good news that an insurance company will cover everything in the office pro bono. So that was fantastic. But they will not cover any liability for volunteers and actions that we do, because it is because of this stupid regulatory framework. And yeah, it's something that we need to cope for sure. This just happened today in the morning. So we are coordinating also with platforms that bring volunteers. This is not that common in Greece yet. There are many platforms, but it's not very common. We have, through a Horizon program in the past, we've created a digital platform for the farmers markets volunteers where we coordinate them, because there are a lot. And we have 36 farmers markets in Thessaloniki and Athens, so they need to be coordinated every week anew. And the last thing here to mention is something that is a rule with Borume. So we have a very clear framework of what we do. We save food, okay? We don't go to clean up a beach or reforest a mountain, which is very common here. We save food. And then this framework, this is what you can do. If you want to do something else, we're sorry, thank you for coming, but you can go to a different organization. Within this framework, we are super flexible, and we are gonna go out of our way to accommodate any particular skills or wishes that a volunteer is gonna have. And this, of course, evolves. It doesn't stay the same. And this brings me to the next slide, which the unfortunate title of compensating volunteers. I put it in quotation marks because compensation is money for me. So we do compensate them, but without money. So the most important for us is what we would like to feel as a volunteer ourselves. So a normal volunteer, let's call that way, wants to feel useful. They want to feel needed, and they want to feel that what they've done today with their time and skills has an impact. So in order to achieve that, first of all, you need to match their skills and wishes with the needs of the organization. This is very important, so everybody's happy. The second thing is regular discussions with the volunteers that come often, so they feel part of the team and they feel that they are heard. They feel that they're not like a second-rate staff within the team. And personally, I go out of my way for them to feel like that, and I take a lot of time from my time to do this. And I want them always to have the feeling that this is an very open space where they can express whatever they feel, whatever they think, whatever they want to improve with the whole of Borume. This is very important, and how they want to develop within our team. It's very important, even saying a small thank you goes a long way, because a normal volunteer is very kind-hearted most of the time and wants to help other people. So they only need to feel that they their time has been appreciated. So even a small thank you goes a very long way. I don't take this lightly, by the way. It may sound banal, but it's not. So then we have other things that we do in order to feel them more included in our team, which is various events that we do, like, for example, cook all together for Christmas, or be together on events, go out together sometimes. And of course, little things like a T-shirt of the organization goes a long way. I've underestimated the power of a T-shirt with this. I'm not kidding. It's very powerful. And then, of course, we started many years ago. We said end of May, beginning of June, somewhere there, when it's not too hot. It's really nice in Greece. It's not too hot. We're gonna close the office, close everything, and all together we're gonna go on a trip. So this is the day of Borume. That's what we call it. And you can see the picture below is from an island close to Athens, where we took a day trip several times. And the picture above is Delphi. I don't know if somebody has been there. It's a beautiful place. And we had a guide. We've been on wine tasting. We've been on several things that we've done on that day. Doing everything else except of saving food. Which is really important, to have a break and then come together with everybody. And these days are very important for the team building that we have. And when we were in our former office, which was really nice, and the fifth floor, we used to have also parties, which were very popular. Unfortunately, these are gone. This went away with the pandemic, unfortunately. So to my last slide, the challenges. Of course, many things are very similar to what Nadine also already mentioned. Attracting volunteers is always a thing. It's an ongoing thing, obviously. And then a challenge, because we are a small organization, the resources that we commit into training new volunteers is always an issue, especially given the high volatility and the dynamic nature of volunteering. I don't know how it is in other countries. I think pretty much the same. So here you can have somebody who will come and stay for 5 years, or they will not come again ever, or they will come for 3 times. So, but you need to invest the same resources more or less, because you don't know that from before. And because you want to have also a very good impression on the volunteer, in order to increase the probabilities of them staying longer, of course. This is always a thing with the team members who train the volunteers. It's always very frustrating if somebody leaves, because they invest their time and good energy and heart into that. And it's, I've spent a lot of time the past 10 years talking to my staff and consoling them for the fact that, you did your best. It's not your fault that they left, etc., etc. And at some point I said, as a rule of thumb, if we have 100 volunteers in a year, if we have 50 after 3 months, it's good. If we have 30 after 6 months, it's good. If we have 10 after 1 year from these 100, we've done a good job, because this is how dynamic and volatile the nature of volunteering is. The regulatory issues are already mentioned, and the liability. I have written this in the summer. It's really updated today, really interesting. A very important issue for us, and we have to see how we're gonna solve this. And of course, Nadine mentioned this, matching the actual needs of the organization with the volunteering wishes. Very often, they imagine something else, something different. This happens very often. I was laughing also with a company coming and saying, we want 100 people to come to you. This happens like every week for us. Yesterday, I had one Coca-Cola, by the way, saying 60 people. We want them all together to do something. I said, have you ever heard what I'm saying? So the farmers market will take like 4 volunteers, and the biggest ones on a Saturday up to 8 or 10, but that's the maximum. Gleaning we've done with 20 people with some companies, but there also gleaning is very ad hoc in Greece, and it's very difficult to organize this with the company. We used to have for a couple of years our own field, and that was fantastic because we could organize everything. but we don't anymore. So that is always a challenge as well. So that's the challenge I've posted here. Yeah, but thank you. This is from my last trip. Everybody, of course, being happy because they're drinking ouzo. Yeah. And of course, you see that 90% are women. I need to mention this. This is almost everywhere the same, unfortunately. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Alex. It was so interesting that I have to like how much you emphasize appreciating volunteers and yeah, just showing them how much you value their work. You had a question that you posted in there. Maybe you want to address this if your mic works. Otherwise, I can read it out.
Sure, thank you. Thanks for pointing that out. I mean, in general, for either Nadine or Alexander, I'd love to hear more about your solutions or what you've implemented to gain volunteers, to retain them. And the question I asked specifically was because you'd written that you have certain procedures to welcome the volunteers, but then you went on to talk about different things. So anyway, sorry, that's my specific question, but I also wanted to know if you'd have time outside of this space to maybe discuss these things further.
So the procedures are very, very simple. The first one is how we reply to emails and requests or mentions in social media, etc., which is very, very fast, very polite, very respectful. But then also we always describe the particular framework of actions that we need, what I described before, because sometimes they imagine something different. So in order to get this out of the way from the beginning, we say we need this. Okay, this is where you can help. Then in terms of the procedures, it's the introduction meeting, as I said, and then depending on where they want to be included. If they are in the office, they're gonna follow up with a shadowing of a staff member for a particular amount of time. Depends on how fast they evolve. For the farmers market, they have a small introduction before their first action on the farmers market, which goes pretty fast because it's not that difficult. For the gleaning as well, we have MOUs for everything concerning a volunteer. The only thing that where we have a more complicated procedure is our educational program, where we go into schools. So because a school being a very, very sensitive environment, as you can imagine, I like Nadine, I heard her speak, but I don't know her. So if she would come today, there was no way that she would go into a school. She would go through all the different volunteerings with Borume. And then if we know her, if we feel that we trust her, then she will accompany somebody more experienced. And then we're gonna introduce her more and more into having a more autonomous role within the school, because it's a very, very sensitive environment, as you can imagine, and we don't want to, we want to be very careful there. For the other things, it's more easy.
Great, thank you. Then Raquel, your question.
Yes, I was wondering, Alex, thanks for your explanation. It's very exciting and to learn more. The average amount of volunteers you have in a regular week, more or less, because it seems a lot of work to training and to figure it out the size.
Yeah, so we have like about 400 to 500 per year. So it fluctuates all the way in the summer because we have many Greek Americans or Greek Australians coming to Greece. They want to volunteer, so it tends to be more. And because like over 90% of them will go into the farmers market program, this doesn't take so much time. We always dedicate an experienced staff member or an experienced volunteer who's going to be heading this particular action where they will be there. We dedicate a little bit time before that, and because it's not that hard what we do there, it's not that so much of a problem. Then centrally, for the office, it takes much more time, but we have like now, since we changed the office because we're not in the center of Athens anymore, unfortunately, thank you Airbnb, we have now about 4 or 5 coming more or less regularly. So you know, it's not that difficult there. For the gleaning, it's very, very ad hoc, and it changes, it varies a lot. Yeah.